Let's focus to the team that actually won the division. NFC South champion. They got the T-shirt and the hat. Bucs got the trophy. But the Saints won the division, and they are in the midst of a major upheaval. Remember, Sean Payton told us almost 3 weeks ago, it'll be a week and a half, they get an announcement from Drew Brees. Well, I did the math.
It's past that.
We're past.
Yeah.
We're past that. But when Brees redid his contract to just give up $24 million with nothing in return, that was one move only. That was the retirement move to give the team more cap space so they can navigate this pre-June period with a low number for Brees. He'll officially hit the books as retired after June 1. That pushes cap numbers into next year as well. That makes it easier for them to move on. The reckoning for Drew Brees is less than it would have been, but it made it clear in that moment when he redid that contract, he's done. I don't know what they're waiting for.
Well, that's what I want to say. Are you concerned that you're not? I mean, you're sure?
No.
I mean, that's where I'm like a little bit like, what's going on? What's taking so long?
No, because when he redid that contract, he went from $25 million down to the minimum this year. That was all about making his cap number easier to digest by the Saints in his retirement. That reckoning was always going to be there, just like the reckoning that the Steelers are going to take this year.
Right.
$22.25 million for Ben Roethlisberger. When you kick the can, those dollars don't evaporate. They go into future years. At some point, the player's not going to be there, but a cap number will be there. Last year, the Patriots had $13 million under Tom Brady's name. I mean, there's always that first year after the guys last year where you have to take that hit. The Saints have figured out how to spread it over two, but it's all premised on this ridiculous reduction in salary. There's no way he's going to play, and it's just a matter of when it gets announced. And I don't know what they're waiting for. Last week would have been a good week to do it because nothing was really going on. This week's a good week to do it. There isn't going to be a whole lot going on as we get closer and closer to the start of the new league year. We're just beyond the point that Payton led us to believe we were going to know something, which is causing some people to wonder what's up. Brees' name just spontaneously started trending on Friday because people were like, what the hell's Drew Brees doing?
Yeah, right.
Why don't we know what he's doing? And I guess until he officially retires, there's a chance that he won't. But I'd be stunned at this point if he'd decide, hey, you know what, I'll play for $1 million this year. I just don't see that happening.
I mean, I don't think so either. I do find it a little curious that, we haven't heard a little more or that's not happened, hasn't had an announcement yet, anything like that. So that is the first thing, of course, they got to figure out. I mean, first off, I think the first thing we say is, like the Bucs, there ain't many holes on this football team either. I mean, you could argue that, in a lot of ways, listen, it was 20-10. They're driving. They were definitely one of the best teams in football. You could certainly argue the Bucs and the Saints are the two best teams in football. If somebody said that to me, I would go, I got no problem with that. That's not crazy. That's about the way I see it. I really do. So there's not a lot there. I think the first thing you talk about with the Saints is just, the quarterback, what are they going to do with that position, and then how are they going to formulate around him? That's the first thing I look at. There's no, huge free agent on their football team. Hey, Jared Cook, Sheldon Rankins, good players, certainly, but I don't look at them and go, oh my gosh, they're done if they don't re-sign those guys. I like both of those players, but they are really well set up. I think the only thing I look at is figuring out the quarterback situation, and then after that, I think the next thing I would look at, Mike, and just you tell me if you agree, disagree, whatever, a little bit more of an explosive element at the wide receiver position. I think that would be the next thing I would look at. If I look at anything with the Saints, and if you're going to have Jameis Winston or Taysom Hill, one of the things that's been holding the Saints back the last few years, and especially when it comes to playoff football, and we've hit on this a lot, they can make the defense defend the whole field. The defense knows Drew Brees is not going to be, Johnny explosive arm and make big throws. And teams tend to creep up towards the line of scrimmage, and they take away the run game and a lot of the great short passes that Sean Payton's so great at creating for that offense, and they've missed that element. And I think we know, and just the way that we've seen games called, you could tell that frustrates Sean Payton or that offense in general. So if I just looked at one area on the offense right off the bat, hey, we got Michael Thomas, we got Alvin Kamara, they can work the short, the middle of the field in the passing game. Traquan Smith, of course, does have some speed. There's no doubt about it. But that explosive element of their offense has been missing, and that, to me, would be one piece that I would focus on more than anything, especially if there's no Drew Brees, and now we have a quarterback that can throw bombs and deep outs and all those things once again.
And the only way to find that may be in the draft, although Deshaun Jackson is now available. When he's healthy, he could provide that explosion that they would need to get the ball down the field. And the question is having a quarterback who can get the ball down the field. You mentioned Taysom Hill. You mentioned Jameis Winston. Here's a little of Sean Payton on his two options at replacing Drew Brees when Brees retires.
First, with Taysom in-house, we've had him, but he had a chance to play more in that role this year. And I thought he had a fantastic season, not just when he was in that role, but he's one of our better football players, period. He's explosive. There's a physicality that he brings when he's in the lineup, either at quarterback or running back or in a receiving mode. And then our exposure to Jameis was fantastic. And I know he's a free agent, but he's someone that I think we're really excited to work with. Now, that means we've got work to do still, and I think he feels the same way. So I feel pretty good about that. Those two guys, for sure.
There was some raving by Payton during that interview from Super Bowl week about Jameis Winston, which would make me very nervous when you consider he's not signed, and you don't want other teams who are scouring the earth for an upgraded quarterback to say, hey, you know what, maybe Payton's onto something with Winston. And, is there a Jedi mind trick going on here? I don't know. He had a full year to evaluate Winston behind the scenes. When the time came for a replacement for Drew Brees, it was Taysom Hill. Now, Payton explained at the time that he had promised Hill that it would be him, that he would get that chance to play if there was an opportunity. And he's promised Winston an opportunity to compete for the starting job, but first Winston has to re-sign. And that's one of the things we have to wait and see whether or not it happens. The Saints way over the salary cap, $69 million in excess that they have to trim before they can even think about signing Jameis Winston. So that's part of the challenge. What kind of relationship do they have with Winston, and is he willing to forego other opportunities to stay with the Saints, compete for the starting job, resurrect his career, and maybe become the guy that he never really was with the Buccaneers? And only he knows whether or not he's willing to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Let's go back to last year when he did get left by the Buccaneers. I know we had many conversations about, we both heard from people where I think people were a little taken back by what they saw on film from Jameis Winston last year when he became available. I think a lot of teams went, whoa, he's a little better than I thought. I know it's all these turnovers, but holy crap, look at all the plays he makes everywhere. This is unbelievable. He makes a ton of plays. Now, to the next part, like your question with him, do you want to go somewhere and, okay, maybe be a starter or do that? I would say no. Negative Ghost Rider. Stay right where you are. Stay right where you are.
Why?
Because, one, you're with one of the godfathers of quarterbacking, right? He's the man. I mean, it doesn't matter. When Drew Brees is hurt, the next quarterback comes in and he throws 70% and 300 yards and touchdowns and no interceptions. So he's amazing that way at making the game easy for a quarterback. He can rebuild Jameis Winston's image around the NFL, the perception of him, everything about that. And I think it's best for Jameis Winston, again, like you're saying, learning football, learning those things to maybe stop the turnovers, all of that. And you're going to get a chance to compete. Plus, on top of that, I would go, even if you lose the competition, Taysom Hill, we saw this year, he got banged up a few times. If he's a starting quarterback, and you're a good backup quarterback or a fringe starter, to me, that's the kind of guy you'd go, and that's the kind of situation you'd go, I'd want to be there. Not hoping that Taysom Hill gets hurt, but knowing that he plays the quarterback position like a car crash running back at times. And he could very easily be the starting quarterback and not play a long period of times because he hurt his knee or his shoulder or something like that. So I would think that is what I would take into account if I'm Jameis Winston right now. That would at least be my 2 cents. I don't know. Do you agree with that thought or not?
The trick play that they stole from the Bears from the wild card round and used against the Buccaneers in the divisional round, Jameis Winston's the one who got to throw it. And it was so clunky how it all set up because Winston comes in from the sideline. Like, so you know something's up.
Yeah.
And Winston's not under center. Like, something's going on here. And the next thing you know, he has the ball and he's throwing that touchdown pass. I just wonder whether or not that was a little nugget that Sean Payton gave to Jameis, both as a thank you for what had happened and as a this is just a taste of how I do things. And it's well known that Payton is always looking for ideas on plays that will match up well against a given defense. And, it just turns out the trick play that was used against them unsuccessfully by the Bears because the ball was dropped in the end zone for what would have been a dramatic touchdown that may have changed the complexion of the game.
Right.
Winston's the one who gets to throw it, not Taysom Hill. I'm intrigued by that possibility of Payton having both Hill and Winston as the starter and Hill in the Taysom Hill role for a year. And then we see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, I would have no problem with that if I'm Jameis Winston. I certainly wouldn't. I think it would be best for his career. And I'm interested to see, with Taysom Hill at quarterback and what they do. I really am. I have gotten the sense just by the last year and a half of, listening to Sean Payton, who we both follow very, closely, and he's a very honest interviewer, that he wants to try this Taysom Hill offense out. And they're built to play that way in a lot of ways. They got one of the best offensive lines in football, if not the best. It's like the Bucs. They can just overpower people. So you have him with Kamara and Latavius Murray, and now it's Taysom Hill run the ball. And we don't know which way is going what and who's got the ball, and he's running and now throwing deep passes down the field and doing all of that. I think Sean Payton can develop a hell of an offense that way and that style, certainly. And they're set up to play that style of football. So really, when you break down this team in a lot of ways, I don't look at any one area and go, they really need it. Pass rusher? Okay, yeah. We got a guy like Cameron Jordan. He's getting up there in age. Marcus Davenport hasn't worked out, right? Not to the extent they wanted it to. So maybe that's something they look at. Middle linebacker, Demario Davis, getting old. Quan Alexander's there. Maybe they look to get a little younger there. But they do have a guy like Zach Bond, who they got in the second round last year out of Wisconsin. So, again, unbelievably orchestrated roster to where, I'll just say to you, Mike, and please correct me if I'm wrong or anything like that. Do you really look at them in any one area and go, wow, they're weak there. They need to fix this? It's really, again, like the Bucs, a lot of just icing on the cake and refining things more than not. Maybe getting a little younger at safety because Malcolm Jenkins is coming to the end. But it's things like that. It's nothing like really, really glaring that jumps out to me at least.
The question becomes how much of that roster gets left by the wayside because of the salary cap.
Yeah, they're in a tough spot.
Excess.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Holy
right now,
crapola.
$65.2 million. Now, they picked up a lot with the Drew Brees restructuring and reduction by $24 million in cap space for this year, but they got a lot of work to do, and there's going to be some recognizable names that are no longer members of the Saints if they don't work out new deals that dramatically reduce their cap numbers. So that's where they're going to have to do some work. And look, this is a team that had, if I recall correctly, and there's a chance I don't, 49 wins in 4 years, the first time a team has had that many wins and hasn't made it to a Super Bowl. The question is, with Sean Payton still in charge of that team, will they be back in the mix again? And I would not pick against this team. It's going to be like the last 4 years. A little bit of a slow start. We wonder what they really have, and then they hit a groove, and it's win, it's win, it's win, it's win. And they're definitely going to have a chip on their shoulder and or a stick up their butts over the Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl. That's going to drive them throughout the offseason. The guys who come back, who were there last year, who were 2-0 against the Bucs in the regular season, they're going to be extra salty about getting their cracks at the Buccaneers this year. Who knows? Maybe they'll get first crack at them right out of the gates, week 1, Thursday Night Football on NBC. But that is going to be part of the motivation, I think, for the Saints, Chris, in 2021, a big part of it.
No doubt. Last thing I'll say, and I think you just kind of said it there. Really, with the Saints, it's more about, who are those guys we look at that we think they're going to trim the fat, right? Who are the guys that we go on their roster and look at them and go, would they make a move there? Would they do that? You know, I just there's some guys on their roster where you look at and you go, okay, this guy's making a lot of money, and are they going to bring him back at this point of his career? And the dead cap hit is not that extensive to where I really think that's more of what to look at with the New Orleans Saints here is who are those veteran players that could end up being on the outside looking in here because they're just too expensive going into 2021.
And something I just thought of, and I'll mention this real quickly. The idea of going to a big name player who's due to make a lot of money and have a big cap number this year and say to him, you've got to take less or we're going to cut you. Usually what happens in a situation like that, the agent will shop the player, even though it's tampering, it happens, to other teams to see what they will pay. The problem is until we know what the cap is, these other teams aren't going to know what they're going to be able to pay.
Right.
It may be that these situations get forced toward you just have to cut the guy and then see how it shakes out after the fact. We may see that more than usual because what happens a lot of times is the guy's agent shops around and realizes, hey, his best play is to take the reduced contract with his current team. That may be hard to do this year until we know what the cap is. It'll be impossible to do until we know what the cap is.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.